Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hey, hello there, and welcome to the August 30th edition of the whatever the aforementioned program was. What was that? Lynn Cullen. Oh, yeah, Lynn Cullen Live. And look who's with me.
I'm her backpack.
That's Tom Sokolowski.
Oh, I have to begin with one very silly thing. Those of you who listened last week when we were talking about Joseph Pujol, the fart master, well, I did a little bit of research.
Oh, for God's sake, you left here and that's what okay.
Because you printed out something from Wikipedia for me. But it turns out in the last 2 years, there have been 2 musicals written. One which was performed off-Broadway. Ooh, dear.
Oh, dear is right.
I turned it off.
Yeah, sure you did.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
See?
You don't be looking. You just
okay. And it was off-Broadway. It was called the Fartest. And then the other one, which was performed in 2011, and then the other one performed in February or something, May of this year at the Philadelphia International Festival of the Arts called A Passing Wind. And both got good reviews.
So, how come we'd never heard of this guy?
No. Fine, I called a friend who's in theater and producing and acting, and I said, have you ever heard of this? He said, no.
But, it's interesting that we hadn't heard.
Yeah. Well, because I think it's partly, something that in our more puritanical times. I mean, I don't think Paul Ryan would love to go to a performance of, although he slaughters pigs, so who knows?
He slaughters pigs?
Did you remember? Yes, he loves, and the direct quote was, he skins and then butchers pigs from his farm or his brother's farm or something, and then he makes his own Polish sausage.
Dear Lord.
Maybe he'll do that for one of the state dinners.
Well, I mean, somebody's got to do it. I mean, if I eat the stuff, but
Paul Abattoir Ryan.
Yeah. So I had not really subjected myself to the convention prior to last evening, but I did a little bit of the Condi Rice speech, which was well received. I must say that the speeches last night were better received, I guess, by the crowd. They got them worked up, as convention delegates invariably like to get.
Well, that means they're good speechifiers, whether what they're saying is correct or truthful.
Well, the problem is, that's true. That has nothing to do with it, the truth of what they're saying. It's the effect it has.
Yeah,
but what's interesting is if you stir up the guys on the floor, are you reaching the people, a much larger audience on television, especially those hard to get to independent voters.
On the fencers.
Yeah, the obvious idiots who can't, let's see, the him or the him. Well, I really don't know enough about either of them. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't even comprehend.
We know they're going to start to do, like they do in many nations where people aren't literate, is the parties and maybe the candidates will be given a color.
A color or a picture.
A picture. Because I remember in Chicago when they put in this new subway line, years ago, this had to be in the early to mid-'60s, even though they were like the 6 and the 5 going to, wherever, people would say, I take the blue line, I take the green line. And there was this whole thing about people who were colorblind and couldn't read. They had a problem.
They had a big problem.
Yeah, right.
it's men that are colorblind. I don't think.
Oh, interesting. I'm not. You may be right.
No, yes, I may be right. I don't know that I am, but even if I'm not right, I think it's mostly men.
Okay. You may be right. I don't know. I've never heard.
Okay, so there, Jess. Anecdotally, we have just been informed by Jess that she has a woman friend who is colorblind, so there.
But then it's a very odd friend.
Yes, very odd.
Yes,
very odd.
Now, why did you think that?
I don't know. It's like one of those things that some piece of information that you came across.
Just like some people, urine smells after they eat asparagus.
Most people.
No. Half and half.
You think?
No.
It's 50-50?
Yeah. And what it is it's not that some people's urine has that smell. It's the fact that they can detect it, whereas other people can't detect the smell of the urine.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes, a scientist told me this.
Well, I can detect it.
Well, because...
So everybody who can detect it says they have but...
capability.
But someone who says, my pee doesn't smell, just doesn't have the nose. So you're saying all pee smells after eating asparagus, but some people cannot smell it.
That's what I was told.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to take this in.
It's like the north and the south.
Okay, but it's like stink bugs, too. Stink bugs, I don't smell them. I step on them with wild abandon, and I don't smell anything. Hello.
Hi, Lynn. How are you? This is Kristen from Greensburg.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a story I think you're going to get a kick out of. I took my son to the mall for his piano lesson at Trombino's, and as we were walking through the mall, we walked by Chick-fil-A, and of course, we walked right past it. And then my 10-year-old, who's very, aware of political and social things, he goes, Mommy, did the people at Auntie Anne's Pretzels say anything mean about gay people, or can we still go there?
That's great.
Aww. And your response is, well, as far as I know...
Well, now you have your child will probably grow up to be president.
That's exactly what I said. I'm like, I think we can still go there. I don't think they've offended any of our gay friends or the Muppets.
Good for your son.
Great story, Kristen. Thank you.
Oh, but you guys have a wonderful day.
You too.
Same to you.
Bye. I am so tangled up here. That's cute.
That is cute. Well, it just shows you, over and above being a gay person, etc. But, a little kid, you just raise them and say, this is what gay people are, and they know, and then they'll just respond to say, is this a mean company too? I'd like a pretzel, but I'm not going to get one if it's a mean company.
Right, exactly.
So children have to be, and I'm sure that child isn't gay, but it's just, you learn things, and it's
okay, this brings up a song. We haven't sung in a while.
We have.
Okay, what song is... You have to be taught.
Oh, yes, from...
to hate and fear.
I don't remember all the words.
You've got to... It's got to be drilled in your...
Yeah.
To hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught.
Yeah. From the sound of
You've got to be taught before it's too late. Before you are 6 or 7 or 8. To hate all the people your relatives hate.
You've got to be carefully taught, yeah. Well, it's very funny, South Pacific, everyone remembers, or maybe my generation, and certainly younger people, but I don't even know what it is, the sort of Bloody Mary and the soldiers running around doing can-can dances, etc. But the show was very controversial because it brought up...
Because of race.
Well, exactly. Yeah, no, it brought because it was glorifying, in a sense, the Americans abroad during the war, etc. But both that guy from, wasn't he?
He was married, the guy. He was married to a Polynesian woman. And his child, his children were Polynesian.
Right.
And she, the lead from Kansas...
That's right.
The corn is as high as an elephant's eye.
No, that's wrong.
Oklahoma.
That's Oklahoma.
Okay.
I don't remember. Nellie Forbush.
Nellie Forbush. And where she was troubled. She was falling in love with him, but the fact is he had these little children who were not didn't look like Americans to her.
Yeah. Well, then the other one, the lieutenant, whatever his name was.
And he fell in love. So they weren't able, it was still controversial.
Right.
And these were... whites falling in love with Polynesians.
Right.
Can you imagine? So they couldn't.
Right.
It wasn't like white-black.
Right.
It was
I remember there was
white-brown,
even talk that when the musical opened, there was some push to delete that song because the other business of his children from the former relationship, whatever, was one thing, but that song is so attacking. And but then it was kept in. That I guess Rodgers and Hammerstein fought for it.
Good.
And it was kept in.
It's a great song.
It really is,
And it's true.
Of course it's true.
You have to be taught to hate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did not watch the...
I didn't watch. I fell asleep for Paul Ryan, so you can...
I know. I talked to my mother earlier, and she said, well, I'd like to... I said, Mom, are you going to subject yourself to the convention? She said, well, I really don't want to, but I really want to hear Paul Ryan's speech. And I said, well, that's going to be the last thing, and you'll have...
Yeah, right.
You'll have fallen. She says, well, don't forget, I'm on Central Time.
That's right.
So I don't know if she listened or not. But what blew me away about it is he on two things. He got the crowd all freaked out. They were booing, boo, boo, when he suggested that Obama was going to take away their Medicare. Now, that creates such cognitive dissonance in my head. I thought this was the party that thought people should do it on their own and not look for things from government.
Right.
And the most exercise they got was, and I was scribbling notes, the crowd is going wild for their Medicare. What's Medicare? It's government health care.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand it. And then he gets on Obama for a plant closing, an auto plant closing in his hometown of Janesville, putting people out of work. One, it closed under Bush, but who don't that
Forget
should
the
not
facts.
be talked about.
Yes,
Facts have nothing to do with it. But he suggested that Obama had done nothing to save those jobs. Well, wait a minute. I thought Republicans didn't think government was supposed to come in
with subventions,
like what Obama ended up doing with the automakers.
Yes, right.
The bailout.
Right.
I'm so confused by these Republicans. I don't. The thing they were most freaked about was that Obama hadn't rescued that plant in Janesville, and that Obama was going to take away their government health care.
Which they would say about other things, entitlements. I love that
and
word.
then he went on to say, we need to stop spending money we don't have, and they went all crazy again.
About that.
But then I wrote, but wait a minute, I thought you just said that you wanted Obama to have spent money to keep that plant open and to fully fund your Medicare.
Right.
I don't.
Well, you know what?
Tom, tell me what.
No, I agree with you.
What are they?
You know what I wish someone did? I saw, it was pretty good, but the New York Times, this was a couple of weeks ago, it was the lead editorial, it was on a Sunday, where their editorials become much longer.
Yes.
And they did a sort of paragraph, like they say, he says, she says, he says, she says, about Medicare. But I would wish someone, maybe them further, would do something and really put like elective surgery, a heart bypass, blah, 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 and like who would cover it how, and maybe point to point. Because I don't know. I mean, all of this rolling over and 55 and under 55.
You don't understand any of it, neither do I.
Either.
And we're relatively intelligent people.
Yeah.
We don't get it. Well,
and then where does all of this come in? Because then there was a very interesting piece, I think it was in the Times, about, all right, there's all that issue about government should pay, but what about the cost of it? Like hospitals, and pardon me, and I have friends who are physicians, but the high prices that's a gun that has to be smashed down, because I don't care whether I'm paying privately or my company's paying or it's Medicare, but if a doctor is charging $200 to wash the wax out of my ears, and that one's happened, to be grotesque. That's ridiculous. Get a Q-tip, And that's what's ultimately, it's the rising costs for all these things, why insurance companies are going wacko and government's going...
Well, I must say, I think $200 sounds like nothing.
But wax in your ear?
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't say 2,000. 200 doesn't even make me bat an eye.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was a lot of money, but
well, so after Ryan's speech, the fact checkers went to work, and I'll just point out the big lies.
Okay.
I already mentioned the GM plant in his hometown, and it says here in Slate that he talked about that in a pretty effective section on how Obama had, hurt his hometown. But here's the truth. GM announced that closure during Bush's presidency. And Ryan hustled to save it. He voted for the GM bailout.
Mm-hmm. Right, I remember that.
In another attempt to save it. Now, you can either call that proof of government's failure, maybe, but Obama did not have anything to do with that plant closing in Janesville.
Now, can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah.
How does that, because I meant to ask you that last week, how do people, your family, your friends, other Wisconsinites, think of him? I mean, within the state.
I think often when somebody from your state is, on a national ticket.
Oh, it's sort of an honorific.
There's a measure of, favorite son, stuff. Mm-hmm. But he is and always has been a relatively well-liked politician. There's nothing, personally offensive about him. Mm-hmm. His district used to be seriously Democratic. And yet Democrats in that area vote for him. It's part of what's happened to Wisconsin for some reason. It's these Reagan Democrats that got the social issues, pulled them over to the Republican side.
Yeah, because the Midwest has always been very liberal.
Yeah, well.
Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah. So another thing he said was the stimulus was a case of political patronage, corporate welfare, and cronyism at its worst. And the fact is Ryan lobbied for some of those stimulus grants to go to his district.
Yeah, really.
I mean, duh.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, since he's going to do it anyway, might as well make me rich. Or make me look good.
Also, when he was going after Obama for cutting $716 billion from Medicare, the fact is that those cuts are exactly the kind of cuts that Ryan was defending when all throughout his House career, which is reductions in future reimbursement rates. He was saying, hey, gotta get a handle on this, and here's how you start to do it. So Ryan was with Obama on almost every one of the things that he was excoriating him for, to the wild, enthusiastic cheerings of the braying delegates.
Well, we were talking about rhetoric, and that most of these people are not good speech givers. And I'm not even talking about whether you agree with their point of view or not, whether they lie or not.
Right.
But I was thinking about, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And those kind of quick of snappy phrases that you remember them.
Bumper sticker.
Yeah, they're bumper stickers. And that's the kind of thing, because people don't either know or don't want to know or are incapable of understanding some of the complexity of these. So you reduce it to these buzzwords, these bumper stickers, and you win people over, and especially when they're half juiced up, waiting for the balloons to fall at a convention with their other boyos. That's how you win them.
Yeah. Chuck has this to say about the plant closing. CNN's fact-checking is reporting this morning that the plant closing, which Ryan referred to, had actually closed under, Bush, and was never, Oh, sorry, we sort of crossed paths there. Yes, that's true. Oh, my. But, facts be damned. These are the Republicans we're talking about.
Right. Well, but also we were talking earlier before we went on about the article in today's Times that this book is coming out, I guess, officially the 1st of September, that was written by one of the Navy SEALs.
Right.
Who was in on the raid and then killing of Osama Bin Laden. And the picture that had been painted by the White House was that they came in guns blazing because there was lots of return shots from people within the complex in the house, and even, at least I thought, and I don't remember reading it word for word.
No, I don't remember that it was ever said that Bin Laden tried to protect himself. What it was said was that his young wife got in between him.
I didn't remember that. But anyway, in this picture, I mean, in what this fellow says, who was a lifer but now is retired from the Navy, was that Osama seemed to be hiding and didn't have a gun in his hands.
Although there was a gun in the room.
No ammo.
That's very odd. It really is odd.
But that he seemed to be either, what's the word? Well, willing to accept his fate or whatever. And the point was that the man who had been the strategist for the SEALs said to the group that went in, if he's fighting and shooting, shoot him. But if he seems to be without ammunition and willing to put his
I think he
hands
said
up,
if he was naked with his hands up,
or something like
there's
that.
no
Right.
reason to kill him.
That's exactly what he said.
Well, I think they blew him away because they just didn't know. They'd been in the compound for 15 minutes.
With other people
and who
at
knows
them.
who else was there. So that's why they did it.
But the big question comes, the one line that I thought was where he said, the fellow who wrote this book, we were not particular fans of the presidents. But when they did this, the line was, this guy's going to be reelected because of this.
They felt it by,
was such a...
Well, you wouldn't know it to listen to the Republicans who are belittling at every... And that brings us to Condi Rice's speech, where she came on to belittle Obama's foreign policy. What's interesting is Rice had been on Good Morning America or something yesterday morning in advance of her speech and was asked to give a specific of Obama's failures in foreign policy.
Couldn't give one.
She couldn't. She tried to change the subject. Well, we don't want to talk about the past. We want to look forward to what Romney, blah, 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 and the I think it was, I don't remember who the woman was who was quizzing her, insisted, no, you said blah, 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 what, and couldn't really come up with a thing. Right. Eventually sort of wandered around to maybe, he's not doing enough in Syria. And so she was then asked, well, would a Romney administration commit American troops?
Right.
And again, one of the things you're not hearing at all from any speaker that I've heard, and granted I haven't heard them all, many, you hear none of what they themselves are offering to do.
Well, that's it. It seems like
there's not an idea to be had.
Right. Well, it's just like knock him. Knock the president and prove like we don't like what he's been doing. But it's not good to go back to what you said about foreign policy. I mean, the only issue, and I'm surprised it hasn't come out more directly, is Israel. And because they're of course very bully on Israel, and the horrible fear I have about that is, and I have mixed feelings about our support of Israel as well. But do they want us to get into a war with Iran? Which, as there was a piece in the paper the other day, just saying Iran, if there's a war, is not going to be like Iraq. It's much bigger. They're much better prepared.
Listen, tell me a war that these guys ever didn't want to get involved
that's true, too. Yeah.
That bellicosity is their foreign policy.
Oh, that's a good line.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they would say is, but it's going to put people back to work making guns and
killing people.
No.
Oh, yeah, right. No. But that is all their foreign policy has ever been is to bestride the globe, like a, over testosterone Goliath. And, to just stomp around owning the place. It is really, it's just simply repulsive.
Well, what's interesting, this goes back again, something we said before we came on. There was an article in today's an op-ed page in the Times about, is the country really being ruled or are we now the new South or the old South again? But why I bring that up is the fact of the Republicans are not willing to admit, and there's a lot of reasons for this. It's not just Bush, it's not Obama, it's probably not just Clinton, whatever. We are probably at the end of our trajectory as the hegemon, as we learned that new word today, of being, like there always will be in England, the French Empire, and that was years and years and years. The Romans for 800 years.
Yeah.
We've had, 200 maybe? And now we're coming, not that we're going to become Guam, but we're not going to be.
No, we're going to be. We're not going to be the only power.
Yeah.
And in fact,
that's history.
It's only been since the Cold Wars that we've been the solitary power. I mean, we sharing power on this globe is an uncomfortable reality, and always has been for the big, the larger and more militarized nations. Here's someone from the American Sociological Association looking at the Republicans saying, what's fascinating about these Republicans is that all kinds of bizarre things are said there, which would normally be considered the rantings of imbeciles. Rather, he says, they are being voiced by well-known political figures, distinguished business leaders, top minds of national conservative movements, dozens of outwardly functional, ordinary people who for some reason appear eager to vocalize bizarrely backward-looking ideologies that no right-thinking modern human would ever fathom giving voice to. It's almost as if these people are unaware that the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, various civil rights movements, and the entirety of social progress over the previous centuries ever occurred.
Well, it's sort of, they have nostalgia almost rearing towards fascism.
If this
the golden old days.
No, that's right. If this gathering were held in the 17 or 1800s, a certain fraction of the comments that are being made on issues like religion and commerce might be considered somewhat appropriate by people of the time. But much of what is said at the Republican National Convention about fairness and the treatment of fellow human beings in need is far more consistent with the very beginnings of rudimentary social empathy in our species, dating back to the earliest emergence of human civilization some 10,000 years ago, when our barely developed ancient ancestors would literally smash each other's skulls in with large rocks without a care or second thought. This, by the way, is from The Onion.
Oh, okay. No wonder it's so good. But it's
so
true.
Right
but
on the money. Thank you, Kristen.
To have this nostalgia, I mean, the old South and the landed gentry.
Well, they live in a mythology.
Yeah.
And there's another piece by McClatchy newspapers that was reprinted in the PG today. Again, looking at some of the earlier speeches in the day. Rand Paul's speech, and also the governor of Oklahoma, Mary Fallon. And she was up there. This was part of them going nuts about you didn't build that or we built that kind of stuff. So she was, dealing with that whole meme, I guess. And she's talking about how Oklahoma was settled by the great land run of 1889 with all of these pioneer Americans with only their grit and no help from the federal government. And here's the truth. Here's what a historian will say. And this is not The Onion. This is truth. What the governor seemed to omit was major chunks of federal government involvement, including what was called the Dawes Act of 1887 and other measures that, guess what? forced all of the Native Americans off the land. The government went in with guns blazing, and they shoved the Native Americans off their land. Force marched them into some reservations. And that is why all those white folks with their grit could go and put down a stake. And that is just one of the things that the government did that allowed these gritty Oklahomans to start up that Sooner State. And here, he's the dean of Pepperdine University's says, those pioneers who came to settle in Indian Territory were totally benefited by the federal government at every turn. The government, let's see. The government surveyed the land for them and sectioned it off into sections, ranges, and townships so that individual plots could be legally described to prevent anarchy, right? And in 1889, the U.S. Army is brought in, and it was the Army that organized these runs. The government is what organized the whole damn thing. So that these gritty, and I'm not saying they weren't. They were gritty pioneers, but they weren't as gritty as those Republicans want to think they are.
Exactly.
Okay. So they all were able to run and claim their 160-acre parcels, which then they were able to register with the U.S. government land office to show that, in fact, they legally own that land, although we know they didn't legally own the land. It was stolen from the Native Americans.
You go, girl.
You know, this necessity to totally corrupt history, to mythologize it into some fairy tale that then allows you to continue to be obstinately ignorant.
Exactly.
Here's another one spoke at the convention. This is a candidate for Delaware's lieutenant governor. She was up there, Cher Valenzuela. See, they were trotting out every woman they could find. Every woman, Latin, anything. I mean, anybody who even vaguely looked
and they're gonna end
like they might not be
that,
a white man.
Very conservative, horrible cardinal from New York,
Dolan.
But then he's speaking of the Democratic one, too, which I find roundly peculiar.
Well, no.
They asked at the beginning.
Catholic vote.
Well, true. But they asked, I guess, for the Republican convention, at the beginning, I guess, there were like 52 different denominations, but no one from Islam. Religious to bless and do whatever, no one from Islam.
Of course not.
Of course not. But, I mean, if you have just one, you could say, well, we have one. But to have 15 and not to have, that is a little...
Every year I get a kick out of this, but if you look at the floor of the convention with the Republicans, it doesn't happen haphazardly. They seat any delegation that they might have that has any color in it, or exotic Asians, that'll do.
Right.
Anybody who's not Caucasian.
Right.
So you get things like American Samoa, with for some reason is on the
next
50.
To Ohio.
Yeah, is on the 50-yard line, front row. Right. And Puerto Rico is right there. And
the M&M strategy.
Right. So that every time there's a cutaway shot, you're going to have perhaps some people.
It looks like what's his name? Norman Rockwell moment.
Yeah, right. Well, even then, they can't conjure that. But yeah. Okay, so there's back to the lieutenant governor from Valenzuela from Delaware, a candidate. She gets up there and starts blasting Obama for saying you didn't build that when she and her husband built up a huge upholstery company, First State Manufacturing. Yes, indeedy. And here's her words. We defied the odds. We rolled the dice.
Goodness.
We could have lost everything. Everything. We didn't listen to the experts. We grew our dream. It's one of those gritty people again. They're all over Republicanville.
I just see her with her button and her needle making those slip covers.
Yeah. You should see her calloused fingers.
But I'm just one of the calloused fingers of people from the Philippines sitting in a sweatshop stitching those slip covers.
She now employs 70 people in a 70,000 square foot factory. But here's what she didn't tell the folks. Well, again, the federal government... well, you see, her little company, it began because she snagged a $25,000 federal loan.
Oh.
She got a small business loan from the government to help her purchase the warehouse. And she, guess what? Most of their contracts are, guess what? With the government. The government is completely keeping her business. Okay, so her local newspaper, the News Journal of Wilmington, reported that the business financed its huge factory with a $301,000 loan. Oh, sorry. And that was backed by the TARP.
Oh, jeez.
So she took...
She's full of shit.
Yeah, God almighty, I hate these people. She took this TARP money and, how are they... I asked the question again. How do they not acknowledge?
No, no one's to say...
I'm not saying that she didn't take
work
a
hard
chance.
For their business, right. But many people do, but to sort of say, we did it without any
help. When in fact, the major help, they couldn't have done it without it, in all likelihood.
Oh, now and I
was from the federal government, tax dollars, and from the dreaded American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, which was that socialistic thing that Obama did. How do you stand there
and
rewrite
is, to my mind,
that?
I think, isn't that wonderful? That the government could provide and help people, whether it's her or me or you, do it.
Republicans don't believe in government doing that.
Well, I know that.
Unless they're on the receiving end, I guess. And then they rewrite the story.
Right, exactly. And then
Unbelievable.
I see, like, Fat Slob over here, and I shouldn't talk because I'm chubby, but what's his name? Christie. Did you see Rob Rogers' cartoon this morning?
Yes.
If those of you who don't see the paper, look at it online. But Rob had Mitt Romney tonight accepting the nomination, and behind him, huge photo blow-up of huge Christie saying, 2016, I accept your nomination.
Well, he was roundly panned, as he should have been, for his speech, which didn't help him. Obviously, it's not helping his 2016 chances for being that tone deaf, for not understanding what his job was.
Maybe, but it got his name out there. Everyone's talking.
Listen, everyone was talking about him before. I say the guy self-destructs.
Well, maybe it was too much of Newt Gingrichism.
No, if they have a choice between that bloated New Jerseyan or the handsome Hispanic Marco Rubio, you tell me.
Marco Rubio.
You tell me which. That's who they go with. Absolutely,
that's
who they
especially
go with.
With the emergent, rise of the Hispanic vote.
Yeah. This, I heard some Republicans saying, this is the last national campaign the Republicans will ever run, in which they are really pretty much solely relying on white people to
Well,
get
that
them in.
line that I read you from the op-ed piece.
Can't do it anymore.
We're old white men and we want our country
back. That's it. They're old, white, angry. That's Rush Limbaugh's audience. Sean Hannity's. That's who they are. Angry white guys. You guys are really making a spectacle of yourself. You be quiet, you white man. Shut up. Shut up. I have to take a break. You never stop talking. I never get my breaks in.
Oh, it's my fault.
I know. I talked a lot, too. I did. Okay, we have to take a break. Quick.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to birdbargains.com for great deals on tickets to the Science Center, the History Museum, Carnegie Museums, and some of the best restaurants in Pittsburgh. This week, get 50% off tickets to the Pittsburgh Irish Festival. Birdbargains.com. Local deals, local merchants. Birdbargains.com.
Are you struggling with your mortgage payments? Call 888-995-HOPE to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about your options. Or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Here I go. Okay, well, I got to talk about the Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council because last time I did, and you were here, Tom, you were scribbling it down. You were actually thinking.
We have an appointment to talk tomorrow.
Oh, you did? You followed up.
Yeah.
Good for you.
See, I'm a good one.
Okay, you make sure you tell him I was listening to Lynn Cullen's show.
I will definitely do that.
Okay.
Your money be well spent.
Yeah, right. You're willing to learn how to teach someone to speak. Why?
Because I think reading is so important. It has both allowed me in my life and most of the people I know to have our lives, to succeed in them. But then maybe even the other part is, which does come secondarily, but the pleasure of reading the news and getting angry about it, or a wonderful book or a play.
Yeah, but you're going one step further in that you want to pass that on to somebody else.
Well, that's what I mean. And when you see some, yes, maybe smart people, maybe not geniuses, who, that when a book is first opened to them and they can take pleasure in it, or read a recipe.
Anything. When I think of not being able to read, that is such a disability. So, Tom.
And it's embarrassment, too.
Yes, of course. It's humiliating.
Yeah.
So Tom has heard the call, and good for you. I'm proud of you.
Well, thank you.
I really am.
Catholics would call it a corporal work of mercy.
Yes, no, really. It's the best. That's deeds, not creeds.
Thank you, Mama.
Yeah, deeds. See? He's living it. Not talking it. He's living it. Why don't you join Tom? Maybe you'll be in like a class with him and you can give him a piece of your mind. Oh, you don't want that.
Well, from what they told me, at least in this first
training's
thing,
one-on-one?
It's one-on-one, but then you can also, if you don't have the amount of time, because I guess they like you to stay for like 4 to 6 months because you want to build up this rapport with your students. But also you can do things under them where you can do language classes for people who have English as a second language, and then that's a group of six
and that's a
people
group thing. Okay, so there's all kinds of. Tom knows more than I do. Here's what I know, though. I know the phone number, and I know the website. Check it out. What a great idea. Good for you. 412-393-7600, 393-7600, or the web is GPLC, Greater Pittsburgh Literacy Council.org.
Pittsburgh City Paper is now available on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com to read this week's digital issue or search for restaurants, bars, concerts, events, and movies on any portable device. Plus blog, Lynn Cullen, City Guide, CPTV, and Best of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com. Get Lynn Cullen live on your smartphone. Go to citypapermobile.com now for Pittsburgh City Paper's brand new mobile app. Get the latest restaurant reviews, event listings, movie times, and of course, Lynn Cullen live on your smartphone. citypapermobile.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
I'm up about this.
I think we're on.
Well, no.
They got you admit. No, you. Okay,
I would say one of the most interesting things that's come up, I mean, I've been aware of this, but I haven't been either a diligent watcher or maybe not as astute as people who are journalists. But this notion of all of these people, we're noticing the Bushes were barely mentioned. We're not.
Oh, no, that's you don't
right,
hear.
We're not hearing from Palin. We're not hearing from, what's that that horrible blonde woman, Ann Coulter. We're not hearing from Rush Limbaugh. And, it's all centered on Romney, but he has nothing to say. Or that one image where he was at the first night, he came and sat.
That was very odd,
which they never
too.
do. It's always like they're coming on a train and then they appear, and he was looking. It was during the Christie speech, and as the way one of the press said was, he looked rather disgruntled since the speech was all about Christie, not about the president. What's the word? President. Designate or whatever. No, he's not. Yet.
He's the candidate designate.
But anyway, that's really interesting, and I think that's when the election's going to be an interesting thing because there's all this hoo-ha going on. But as again in today's Times op-ed, this business of many people today seem to speak the conservative line, and yet once they go into the polls. They vote more liberally. Democrat? That was what George Will.
I know that's what George Will's about.
And I think it could be this whole sort of thing that, we're going to talk about this, that, and the other. But when you really come down to it, do you really want Romney when, what was the line the other day? He can't shake the Etch-a-Sketch that many more times.
Yeah.
To recreate himself.
Well, I think when you have an entire convention in which the job of everyone speaking is pretty much the same, which is to humanize your candidate, you got a problem. I mean, you got a problem. You got to not only humanize him, but also make you believe that he's actually with you, that he's one of you in every way, that he agrees with you politically, that he, in fact, is a regular human being. And I don't know. The fact that we're told that this is a too close to call election is just mind-boggling to me.
Well,
mind-boggling.
One of the things I think I'm supposed to gazette this morning was that there's going to be some sort of panoply of Mormonism tonight. I don't know if there's going to be like the choir coming to sing, but he's supposedly going to talk more about being a Mormon. He's finally going to talk about his religion. And then there's going to be some sort of
He should.
Hoo-ha. Well,
it's not like it's a secret. And apparently his Mormonism has played out in some interesting ways in which he's very hands-on with doing, again, deeds, not creeds.
And I
go
respect
for
that.
it. I mean, the fact that he seems so unwilling to...
Well, but much of Mormonism, I mean, I am not a historian or a believer, but is about that. Like, you can't go into the temple in Salt Lake City until... only man can go in, and then you can't go in until you're 50 or something for some special rite. It's almost like the ancient Shriners and those kinds of people.
Well, but every religion has these.
Well, no, but so much of though is very hidden. And then what's interesting is I didn't realize this.
I think it's a very, very paternalistic religion. But then name me one
that isn't right. But what I was surprised at. The small number within 100% of the countries who people who have religious creeds, it's only 1.7%. That's really small.
I think it's
people. No, that's what the paper.
I don't think Jews make up much more.
Really?
Yeah, really. And I think Mormonism is growing.
Yeah,
quite
I suppose
a bit.
it's fast growing.
I think. What is it with these little groups of people that are so small in number but seem to
great influence?
Well, they're hard workers.
Yeah.
They're successful.
Yeah, I'll give them
and
that.
I think that this is cultural then. It becomes cultural.
Right, exactly.
And I think it's, I think when you're a member of a minority, Mitt Romney is.
Yeah, sure.
I don't understand why it doesn't make him more sensitive to other marginalized people.
I knew someone a long time ago, not a good friend by any means, who taught at the University of Utah at Salt Lake City, or Brigham Young or whichever. And he said, now this was back 30 years ago, but he said if you weren't Mormon, and you didn't have to be a enemy, or you didn't have to be a spokesperson against the Mormon faith or Mormonism, but that they would not shop at businesses that were not Mormon. And he was told it wasn't just because, I'll shop at my Aunt Fanny's chocolate store, but they were told, that's a Jewish store, that's a Christian store. I mean, non-Mormon, don't go there. And businesses would just fail. one after the other. So there was a kind of, shtetl mentality there.
Well, it's a kind of clannishness that you...
very much, yes.
I mean, but you hear people in the African-American community here saying we should be more like that. And I would argue that's true.
That's true.
That's true.
But, I mean, I would say, what's the word? Utilizing those companies, and we've all done it because we like them or whatever, even if they're more expensive than Walmart is one thing, but boycotting is something else.
Romney, I was listening to some interview he had given. He was talking so wistfully about, the mom and pa store on the corner, or maybe that was even Ryan last night. I don't know. And I thought, but you guys, your policies, which favor the big fish,
right,
the big boys, when enacted, you make them bigger and stronger and more powerful. And their stores, their big boy stores, absolutely squelch
mom and pop
put out of business
right,
all those little mom and pop stores that you conjure up again as part of your mythology of what the America is you want. And it seems to me that all you really care about are the biggies, the big boys. I mean, and
that there's no success or no pride to be had by mom and pop who never wanted to be Giant Eagle or whatever. They just want to have a nice store where they can deal with their community.
All the tax breaks goes to the big guys.
Exactly.
All the and the little guys have such incredible tilted playing field now because they're undercut constantly by the Walmartization of American retail, and
along with that, the other thing that's one thing. You can say, when you have a bigger company, you can buy more, inexpensively, etc. But it also then becomes a kind of homogenization.
Absolutely, which I detest.
The point of going to a little Jewish deli is to get something
something different,
or the
personality
Irish,
of the owner, or
the Irish, home goods store.
Exactly.
And you don't want it all to be spam.
It'll be different.
Difference.
Yeah, right. So why wouldn't you have policies, tax policies, or incentives that would make a consumer want to spend money in a mom and pop store?
Well, because then that's like vouchers, and then that's like socialism, right? In their words, not my words, but
I don't know. Oh, God. So it's going to be over tonight, right? When did the Democrats start
is it next week or week after?
I think it's next week already. Is it?
2 weeks
Maybe
of this
not.
palaver. Oy.
I know. I can't. I can't stand watching the Democrats.
Well, the worst thing was I saw last night.
On Monday.
Really?
Labor Day?
No.
Really? It is.
Yeah.
That's Labor Day.
They had on. This was early because I put it on when. NPR has it on. Third Channel 13 from 7 at night.
Yeah, they're running.
And Gwen, what's her name? Gwen Eiffel, with a few other people, was interviewing Santorum. Oh, he is such a sleazeball. And I would say, why are you giving him airtime? He's just and he was just going on.
Well, it's the Republican week. That's why every time you turn on, there's another one.
Yeah, but you don't have to get Santorum.
Yes, you do. He was almost.
Well, that's
he
right.
was the one who gave Romney a run for his money. And you talk about 2016, Ricky is warming up for that, too.
He'll be the fat boy and the bigot.
The fat boy, the bigot, and the Hispanic matinee idol. Rubio.
We've just created a new aria.
Rubio. Oh, God.
Isn't they actually, I'm trying to remember who it is, but isn't the keynote for the Democrats a Latino?
I believe so, yes.
I don't remember who it is, but.
Some young, handsome Latino.
From Florida, is it? Or
I don't know, Texas maybe.
Oh, okay.
I have not a clue. I hate these parties. I hate all of it. I can't stand it. I really can't. You think there'll be a great moment like Hubert Horatio Hornblower?
A friend emailed me. He said he watched all of Christie's speech, and he said at one point he thought he reached below, I don't know, for some water or something, and he said, I thought he was going to pull out a corn dog and chomp on it. That would have been hilarious. Now, Rob Rogers, if you're listening, that's the cartoon with, what's his name, with a corn dog in his hand.
Okay, so Barbara has sent me something, and I don't know if it's something I can ingest in a mere second by looking at it, but something from Rolling Stone. I don't know. Greed and debt. It looks like it's a heavy thing. I'll read it later, and maybe...
we'll see if it pops up in the first two lines.
So I sent you that Toyota ad. What did you think?
Well, this is well described.
And let me, here, this is a pretty good description right here. Okay, there's a Toyota ad that we're not seeing here.
It's in Japan. I think only in Japan, yes?
Yes. It's for one of their cars. I don't know which one. Anyway, here is, I'll describe it to you because you ain't going to see it unless you look it up online. Okay, the long-haired 19-year-old Ukrainian model struts toward a car as the camera lovingly follows the model's perfect red bikini-bottomed butt. A jacket is seductively shed, and then the model turns around to reveal she's a guy. Bare-chested, no boobs, and the face of this model. You see the face.
Yeah.
You see this person's face as
wasn't the actual
she
line
is walking.
A flat chest, but not such a flat groin.
No, bare chest is flat, but the bulge in the bikini bottom is not. Okay, so it is really disconcerting in a way because you see her, they show her first, she's gorgeous.
Well, to me, I thought the most...
And then that perfect little tight butt.
But that's the part I was getting at. What I found interesting, because, yes, this is a very androgynous-looking, very pretty person. I think if he had a much butcher haircut, it wouldn't be so tantalizing. But the thing that I found interesting, which to me was very, very curious, was that the backside of this person, which you see first, was very much a female, sort of apple.
That's
not a male.
I agree. I went back and looked again because I thought, wait a minute, because this perfect little ass sort of went into, there was like, men, there was a real difference between the waist and it did really look like a woman. But here's what the story said. Who knows if they're selling cars with this, but it makes you says, what's a real woman? Or it's not that he's transgender. He isn't doing drag. He says, I'm comfortable in my body just the way it is. And the article says, so this model represents a new understanding that gender isn't always neatly defined, and that a man can be alluringly beautiful in the same way a woman is. And whether or not that sells Toyotas, who the hell knows? But you pointed out...
Well, what's very interesting about this is where it's going. It's appearing in Japan. Now, what's very interesting, I did a number of projects in Japan, and one thing that I discovered, and it's a continuous image of Japanese, what would you even call it, culture, but that's not quite the word I'm looking for, is that they are very interested they're very insular and very sort of frightened by other cultures because they think they're more redolent, they're more powerful than their own. And yet whenever they take on and try to take on these various semblances, these very like costuming things, they always diminish them by making them cute. So in this case, if that person was a woman and she turned around and there were these tatas, I always love that word, then it would make it sexual. And the Japanese would be very frightened by that. So what they do is they get someone who's androgynous, and therefore it makes it alluring in a different way, but
and not Japanese.
Pardon me?
And not androgynous and not Japanese.
And that's interesting. When you look at manga, which is the word for comic book, they have a lot of manga that are pornographic. And every time you get to a pornographic scene, the character is always
Caucasian.
A Japanese person is never seen either eroticizing, or they have cases where they have, the man ejaculating in great effluvia on the page. It's always a white Westerner. So it's this way, as one cultural historian told me, he said, it's just like we love terrariums.
Yeah.
And it's haka is the word in Japanese. And it's because if you make everything little, it's subservient to you. It's not the big oak tree or the huge pine.
It's taking nature
and crushing it and making it artificial. Seriously.
Well, stop and think. They do what is that with trees? The miniaturization of trees.
Bonsai. Right, bonsai. Exactly. And it's about control. But it's very interesting. I remember there's this one section of Tokyo called Harajuku, which is where the young people go on Sundays, and there's millions of them shopping for everything. One day you'll see a girl dressed up, and she's like heavy goth. Pins and blue hair standing out. The next day, the same girl is in Laura Ashley, and the third day she's in Marimeko. And even when she's the the goth girl, and here they spit in your face, they're very polite there. It's because they're afraid of the terror of the goth girl, so they make it very nice. And then what happens is they all go to a public bathroom when they're in this place, Harajuku, take it all off, and when they go back home, they're on the train in their school uniforms.
So odd. It's an odd culture.
So it's a very strange culture that is about, on one level, insularity, total arrogance of being the most proud, the most brilliant society.
Well, but I think it's an island culture.
Well, that's it, yeah.
I mean, how different is it than the Brits?
Well, I remember one time when we were doing these projects, in their Congress, their diet, which is called the diet, they had a guy stand up and say, Japanese internal organs, the digestive system, are so different from the West that they cannot eat American beef and American citrus fruit. They had to have Japanese one. And all that was about was like stopping the competition.
Right.
But they had to make this mythology. So
that
it
they
goes
were
back
different.
To Republican.
Yeah.
They were different. So it's a very strange idea.
Wow. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want to find that ad, just if you're
curious.
It's
very provocative.
I think it was initially, the story was in Salon.com, and I think I found it on Alternet, which you can also look for, because it is mind-blowing. And
when she turns around.
You'll never see it in the United States of America, I can assure you.
Well, maybe now we're in Jon Stewart, maybe, or something.
Right.
But,
not with these Republicans around.
No.
Okay. Hey, Tom, thank you.
Oh, thank you, my dear.
And thank you, if in fact you're there. And tomorrow we'll start it up and do it all over again. Okay? Have a great day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.